Okay, that was good. It was very good. Look, people, this is death. It's profound, it's mysterious, and we are being recorded. Okay, so let's try this again from the top. Not bad. Doing well so far. This is the moment, though, when you don't talk about something like death, where you kind of wish you had a very stab at the gravitas of Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. I don't have that voice, unfortunately. I did write to central government for a smoke machine. I thought it might have had a bit of atmosphere. They said there was no budget for anything more than what we had. They said that all of the money had gone on the catering budget. I was a bit confused. They said something called eat a mess. Bear with me, there is a point. I did check if it's a fire escape. We're in Scotland. Anyway, so I thought death, it's a little bit of a sad topic. People feel a little bit uncomfortable about it. In fact, a recent survey shows that 52% of Scots don't even want to talk to their own family about what they want to happen after their death. That's a lot of people. However, I wanted to introduce the concept of folk groups. Now, many people might know about folk groups, but I didn't just want to talk about them. I really wanted people to feel what it's like to be part of a folk group. And I thought, I don't really want to wheedle at you and kind of make you think about all your memories of death, and that'd just be no good. Everyone would run out crying, terrible. So I thought, what's almost as bad as death? Brexit! When I got up here, and yes, it was a political joke, it was a joke about the Tories, a joke about Brexit. I wonder, audience participation time now. Just because you can't get any less than Brexit, then audience participation. Is anyone brave enough to admit that when I came up here and they heard the Tories, a little bit about Brexit, eating mess, did anyone think, oh, not one of those Remainers? We've got a snowflake on the stage, banging on about Brexit. Will anyone be brave enough to wave their hands?
Good in Scotland.
Okay, is anyone brave enough to admit that they thought, we like this woman? You thought, she's one of us. We get that joke. We like that joke. Yeah? Yeah. Excellent. Well, that, my friends, means you're in a folk group. Okay, so maybe not, but I thought one half of the room might be leavers. One half of the room might be Remainers. And then we would have two different groups with different in-jokes, different language that they would use to describe themselves and other. Okay, so what I want you to do is take that Brexit rage, feel it where it hurts, and take that and think, if that's how passionately you feel about belonging to one side or the other in the Brexit debate, how much more profoundly would that affect you if it was about death? And the things that you believe about death, and the traditions that you and your folk group have surrounding death. Much more. Okay, so let's move on from Brexit now, thankfully. And I'm going to tell you a little story. And people call this a personal experience narrative, which basically just means it's a little bit of a story from my own past, because I don't really want to wheedle at you and make you tell me where. Okay? So, the story is about my own first experience of death. So when I was 5 years old, or thereabouts, my great-grandma died. Which was very sad, but I didn't know her very well, and I was very small. But I remember being in bed, and my mum came in and she said, great-grandma's died. I thought, that's really sad. I was 5, I didn't know what to do with that. No one tells you what to do or what to think or how to act. When you're 5, not about death, it's too much, it's too big. So I went with the flow, I was rolling with it, I was doing well. And then a few days later, my nan said to me, we're going to go and see great-grandma. And I thought, was she died? But I went with it, I was cool. So we turned up at the funeral home. I didn't know what that was. And then the door opened and I said, come on in and see great-grandma. Well, that was a surprise. It was definitely a surprise. But I held my own. I was standing there, my family were around me, they were doing okay. It was all fine until my nan said, give her a kiss then. I was 5. I didn't know if kissing corpses was normal. But I thought, I don't think it is. I don't think this is the right thing to do when someone dies. But I was 5. I didn't know. There was peer pressure. There was expectation in their faces. Everyone was waiting. So I gave in to peer pressure and I kissed the corpse. And that stuck with me throughout my whole life. But what I saw was approval. Everyone looked around and they carried on as if it was all perfectly normal and that's just what you do. So, I don't know if that's just my family. It may be a Scottish tradition. Do let me know. That was a tradition from my folk group. And as the individual in the room who didn't know the rules, I was surprised. Okay, so what I want to do now is just look at some death rituals from around the world and then move on to death rituals across time in Scotland specifically. Because there are many diverse rituals and we all belong to a folk group. And like the Brexit example, we think our opinion within our folk group is normal. And when we look at other folk groups, we think, that's weird. It's different, it's not what we do, it's not our normal, it's the equivalent of kissing a corpse. Okay, so around the world, it's not the same as what we do here in Britain. This here shows coffins on the side of a mountain. And they're suspended here permanently. This is the Sagada province of the Philippines. And people bury their dead as far as they can off the cliff, as close as they can to the sky. Because that symbolises being close to the heavens. And that's a very spiritual and important thing for them. A different people from the same country, from the Philippines, the Tingian people, a little bit different. What they do is they take their dead relatives, they put them in their snazziest clothes, they sit them in the corner of the room and they put a lit cigarette between their lips and they leave them there for weeks. It's unusual to me, coming from a different folk group. I wouldn't be quite comfortable eating my dinner and watching. This here is called the Tower of Silence. This is actually in Iran, and it's a Zoroastrian temple. It's a Zoroastrian structure, and what the Zoroastrians do is they put their dead not in the ground like we do, they put them at the top of the tower. The dead will have their bones picked clean by vultures. Which sounds revolting, and you think, why would anyone do that? That's horrible. Until you learn the reason. And why they do that is because they believe that the putrefaction of a corpse in the ground will contaminate the earth. It makes absolute sense. And you think, yeah, I understand that now. When you have an insight into why things are done, you think, yeah, I'm on board. In fact, it gets better, because the Parsis, the Zoroastrian Parsis in India, actually believe that the birds eating their flesh is almost like the last act of charity. They're giving their bodies back to the animals and birds of the air. Quite lovely. Not if you're standing in that tower of silence. So, what we're seeing here are many, many different examples of life cycle rituals. So life cycle rituals are just those things that we do to mark important times in our lives, like birth, puberty, marriage, death. We have these rituals for a reason. A good reason. Many good reasons. They're listed there. In brief, these kind of rituals really help us to accept what's happening. There are rituals that help us accept death. It makes death seem normal because there are traditions that we have. And if we have traditions, it means it's happened before. It means it will happen again. It means it's normal. And that makes us feel a little bit better about it and realise that we can accept it, even though it's hard. These kind of rituals also help to bond the community together. Everyone has a place, everyone has a role, everyone has something they're supposed to do. And it might be difficult to do that, but really it also helps us deal with our grief because it keeps us busy. And everyone else is being kept busy, and everyone else is sharing this experience, and they bind us together and help us get through these difficult times. So, we have a lot of diverse rituals around the world. We see some as normal because they're from within our own folk group. We see some as unusual because they're not. But they're all for the same purpose. So, you might still think you want to walk away with, they're all a little bit weird though, aren't they? We're the real ones. And here's why. Okay, so I thought a little bit early to mention Christmas, but I thought what would be nice, a little bit like A Christmas Carol for Charles Dickens, I could be the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future, but for death. So first of all, I would like to take you to the past. So, 5,000 years ago. It's quite a while. Death has quite a long history. So, imagine 5,000 years ago, we are in prehistoric Scotland. We are in the Neolithic. It's the time when people have just stopped being hunter-gatherers and roaming across the land, hunting, gathering, taking what they need as and when they need it. Now we have the first farmers. People are beginning to settle in the land. They have permanent dwellings, houses. They are beginning to feel a sense of belonging and ownership to an area, to a region, to a place. They belong. They have an identity in a new way. They didn't have this kind of identity before. So, in Scotland, you may be surprised to hear that there was a major ritual centre. You may already know. I'm surprised to find that because all the later archaeology, it's all down south. It's all in Wessex, and that's south for me as well. I'm from Liverpool, and it's like, it's all down south. Now it's even more south. But, no, in the Neolithic, the main centre of religion in the whole of Britain was up in Orkney. And there was a huge ritual complex all around Ring of Grovger, the Stones of Stenness, all around there. There was even something that's been described as a cathedral because it was so big that people would come and worship and celebrate together. So, what we have as part of this Neolithic ritual complex is a lot of tombs for the dead. Okay, and they go right from the top of Scotland down the west coast of Britain. They cover Wales, they go down to Cornwall. It's a tradition that we see all across the west coast. And what they are giant mounds of rock and earth. And you will see them in the landscape if you drive past, and you might think, there's a weird one. Stop the car, investigate the weird one. Many of them you can visit. Some have visitor centres, And what they are, huge mounds of earth. And then when you get close, you will see a little gap. In many of them, not all of them, some have different structures, many of them have a little gap, and it's dark, and it's creepy. And the idea is that there's a huge passage, almost like a passage into the world, a passage into the realm of the dead, a passage into the realm of the ancestors, which sounds very amazing and spiritual. Until you're standing there in waterproof hiking boots with a tiny gap, and you have to kind of edge your way along. You know, it's not cool, it's not spiritual. They're very cramped and a bad bag. But once you have moved through this passage, you have taken that journey into the realm of the ancestors. You will see a chamber of stones. Like this one here, this is the tomb of the eagles. This is also in Auckland. And what we have in many of these tombs is very similar. You have a chamber. Many of them have chambers coming off the main chamber. And originally, they would fit it with bones. So, this tomb here, the tomb of the eagles, had bones from 340 people. It's not that big. It's not that big at all. So what on earth were they doing? Well, some lovely people in the 19th century went over to Madagascar and they thought, wow, we've got some of them at home. But the people of Madagascar were building and using these tombs, very similar tombs to the ones we have in prehistoric Britain, prehistoric Scotland, in the 19th century, which gave us an insight into what they were doing. But what on earth were they doing? So, the people in Madagascar, the Imarina, they would wait for an auspicious time. They would look at the planets, the moon, the sun, and there would be a day where they said, this is the day. And they would go and they would pull the rocks to wherever they wanted the tomb, and they would kill the people, and they would pour the blood on the stones as a blessing and an offering. Then they would build the tomb, very similar tombs. Then they would bring their dead. And sometimes it would be a body, a whole body, and they would come and they would bring it in, put it in the tomb. And this is what we think was happening here. They would bring the body and leave it. Not always, sometimes. They would take a body and they would bury it in the ground. Or they would put it on a platform, just like the Zoroastrians. And they would wait until the flesh had gone. And then they would take the long bones, the legs, the arms, sometimes the skull, and they would just take those bones. And then they would take those two and put them in the tomb. They weren't that fussy. They wouldn't just take Bob. They'd be like, there's Bob and Fred. Just grab them both. Put them in the tomb. There we go, they're in. Not enough room. Push them back a bit. So as all of these people were added to the tomb, the bones would be pushed back and they would be mixed. No one seems to have minded too much about that. It wasn't an issue. It didn't matter. That in itself is quite interesting. Because what that says to archaeologists is about collective burial. The rites and religion that surround these tombs, they weren't about individual people. They were about community. They were about people as a group, a folk group, all being put together, visited together, worshipped together. It didn't matter who they were on their own. And it's thought, looking at Madagascar example, it's thought that these tombs would be visited over and over and over again. There would be rituals and festivals seasonally every year to come back. There was some evidence in other places. There are holes in the stones that people put their hands through and handle the bones. Again, not something I would do in my folk group, but they're doing it here. So what that is saying to us is that there was an ancestor about root identity. This is about looking at the land and saying, this is our place. This is where our dead are buried. This land belongs to us. Which doesn't sound strange at all, because we do that. We have that. But for these people who didn't have permanent houses, they didn't stop and stay in one place. They moved around. For them all of a sudden to stop doing that and own the land and bury their dead, that's quite a profound shift in thought within human history. Here's another tomb, and here you can see, this illustrates how the passage goes in and then there's a chain. This is made how? One of the most famous tombs in all. So, this one's interesting because, you know, like we said, in Madagascar, they worked it all out based on the planets and the heavens when it was all going to be done. This one here, the passage, the winter solstice, lights up with the sun. Here in Scotland, people knew about the heavens. They waited for years to work out how they were going to build this, how they were going to angle it so this happened. So it must have been important. And it's interesting as well at Maze How, because the folklore that we have left today is that in Maze How there's this mischievous spirit, and it's called the Hogboom. Some people call them Hogball or Hogball. And it's a mischievous spirit. What can you say? It's not very nice. However, what people think is that they trace this back to Norse people who used the tomb. There were rumours found in this tomb. It had been pilfered. There were rumours of dragons and treasure. But what's interesting about Hogball is that people actually think that originally these spirits would have been the guardians of the land, the ancient spirits who protected the people who lived in the area. But over time, their importance was diminished, and they've just become Hogball, the mischievous spirits, with a little bit of sinister. So, that was the Neolithic. Let's skip forward in time a little bit to the Bronze Age. That's Madagascar, that's not the Bronze Age. Here, in the Bronze Age, in Scotland, moving over to the Hebrides, we have Cladhallen. That might be wrong, you can beat me later. Cladhallen is an interesting site, because what we find here are mummies. So, these mummies were people who died, who would then be buried in peat bogs. For 6 months to 18 months, they would be left in the bog, and they would be brought out. I don't want that job. It's not nice. They would be brought out and they would be mummified. Just like the Egyptian mummies look mummified. That's what you get if you bury someone in a peat bog. Don't do that. However, what is even more interesting than that is once these mummies were brought out, they weren't just buried. People kept them. Just like the ones who sat, whoever, in the corner, the best photo with a cigarette, in the Philippines. These mummies were kept for between 300 to 600 years. Why would you do that? We don't know. No one knows. People have suggested things, no one knows. Something even weirder. They're not even whole people. The male mummy, this one here, he has the body of one man from 1600 BC. A little while later, he got a new head. His soul belongs to someone else. Later still, he got a new jawbone from someone else. This mummy is made from 3 different people. So, experts have theories. One expert said, maybe his head just fell off. And they went over here and they thought, there's a new head, let's just pick that up. Let's put it on, no one will ever know. And someone thought, maybe it's that simple. Other people thought, do you know what, it's not that simple. They thought, no, this is some kind of symbolism. This is a symbol of ancestor. This is possibly a figure that was revered as an ancestor and put together possibly from different lineages, and it was a composite of all of these ideas rolled into one. Well, it might have just been his head fell off, no one knows. Now I am going to be the ghost of death of the present. Let's say the present, because it's not that long ago. Let's get forward to the 19th century. Okay, so 5,000 years ago, 19th century, surely not so much. So, in the 19th century, we have more information. We're not reconstructing things just from fragments. We're not trying to guess what happened by excavating sites and going to different places and thinking they might have done that. We have information. We have written records. We have. Sometimes we might wish we didn't. Predictions of death were hugely important. And what we do see is the emphasis goes from the collective and the group more towards the individual. People care who dies now. We can see that. There was no evidence of this before. They probably cared. We don't know. Many predictions of death. So let me just give you one, which I like particularly. When someone dies, you take the straw from their mattress. I don't think it works with silent, right? I'm not saying. You take straw from their mattress, you burn that. In the morning, there may be a footprint. And then you look around the room. A little bit like Cinderella, you see whose foot matches that footprint. And they will be the ones to die. Even better, on St. Mark's Eve, you can do something similar. That's the 24th of April. Mark that in your diary. Okay. You can use any fire. You don't even wait for someone to die. Any fire. You can use the fire in your house. So at night, the fire goes out. In the morning, you come down. Whose footprint is in that fire? Because that's the one that you're watching. However, that's not enough in Scotland. It's not enough. When everyone went to bed, someone, somewhere, we have accounts of this, would wait for everyone to go to sleep. And then they would sneak so carefully to someone's room and take just and they would sneak downstairs and they would make the imprint in the ashes. And then they would clean the shoes, make sure there's no evidence. Put the shoe back in the bedroom, and then just wait. And the poor victim would come down the next morning and find their own footprint made of their own shoe. Don't do that, it's not kind. Okay, so not only did they do that, there were many superstitions and customs around death that you might imagine. So, when someone died, the first thing that would be done, often, they would tell people, which is nice because it shows that people cared. They would ring the death bell in the village or the town and the death would be announced. Which I think is quite nice because we don't do that so much now. There's a lot of phone calls. Everyone likes making phone calls. Then within the house, things would be done. Traditional things that reflected the beliefs that people had at the time. The mirrors would be covered. Now, there are different reasons given for this. Some people say it's so the soul was not trapped inside. There is a massive preoccupation with the soul of the person who's passed over, because it's very important that they are released and remain peaceful. We'll come back to that. Other people say that the mirrors are covered because it represents that all beauty has disappeared from the world. That's sad. The clocks would be stopped. Remembering the poem now, which I'm not going to read because it's too sad. It makes me cry every time. And the clocks would be stopped because that shows that the time shared is no more. Often at this point, some people open the window, and that again is about the soul. That lets the soul out and releases it from the house. So, that's not enough. There's more. Now, And today we have wakes still. A lot of traditions still have wakes where the body is laid out and certain customs are observed. They also did this in the 19th century, and the body would be laid out and watched by up to 10 people. They're usually single people, and they would take turns in pairs. And that could go on for up to 8 days. So here you have a lovely illustration that was actually cut from my book, For Being Too Creepy. It's by Joe McLaren, who's a fabulous illustrator and very creepy. So what this actually shows, and a little rhyme to go with it, is the blessing called saving. Okay. So what we're going to do now is Wendy is going to come up and actually read the rhyme, because I can't pronounce the words, and she's very kind. So Wendy. And then when Wendy's finished, I'll explain what on earth is going on.
Thrice the torchy, thrice the salty, thrice the dishes tomb for loffy. These 3 times 3 ye must wave round the corpse until it sleeps sound. Sleep sound and wake name, till to heaven the souls gain. If you want that soul to die, fetch the torch frae the ellery. Gin you want that soul to live, between the dishes place a sieve, and it shall have a fair, fair shriv.
It took me a while. Let's get this. Okay, so just to underpin, all of these traditions are taking place, and all of these things must be done perfectly in order to help the soul. Okay? Because there are 2 types of death. There are the restless dead and the peaceful dead. Now, if one of your loved ones passes over, you want to make sure that their spirit is at rest. So you have to do all of this stuff, and you have to do it well. That's a lot of pressure for anyone. Okay, so you have a right to help you remember what you need to do. So, first of all, the eldest woman will take a candle. But not just any candle. The candle should be procured from a wizard or a witch, or somebody who can see into the future. And again, still not enough. It has to be made from the fat of a vanquished enemy, a murderer or murder victim. Quite precise. You're not getting them in Tesco's. So, then it will be passed 3 times. Thrice the torture. Then a plate would be put on the chest of the corpse, and 3 handfuls of salt would be put on. Very precise. Then 3 tombs, there we go, which are golds, would be put near the hearth, as close to the fire as you can get. And that's because the soul is thought to be like a flame, and it flickers. So we thought that the soul will go to the fire and hover. And the bowls are thought to be empty to contain praise. I think that's the kind of vibe that we're going with. It's not 100% clear. No one's actually been able to decipher this completely, I don't think. But yeah, that's the kind of idea. The bowls are empty to be filled with praise. And all of these kind of things help the soul to rest. So, then, once all that's done, everybody who is there will leave the room, and then they'll come back in backwards, reciting the line. Some people then say the window should now be opened to let the spirit out. Some people think the spirit's gone already. No one knows. Different in different places. If you need to do it, you better check that detail. Okay. In some places, this is usually in the lowlands, in the more western counties, you might need a sieve as well as these other things. And you can put that in the middle of the bowls. Some people say you put this on the corpse's chest. Then everyone in the room tries their best to put their hands in the sieve. And if no one manages it, that does not bode well for the rest of the spirit. Whoever gets their hand in the sieve they help the spirit most, so pat on the back for them. So that is called the dissolution ritual. And what then happens after that at the wake, before the sitting during the day, and after dark is called the light wake, what happens then is the body is watched over. You can't sit there for 8 days and do nothing. I'm thinking it would be really quite depressing. So you need activities to keep you busy. So first, you could do fortune telling. And you've got the bowls, where they're ready. Some people put them on the table. And then you put your hand in the bowl and you have your fortune told. But beware, if the corpse sits up and frowns while you're having the that's bad luck. I don't know why they see that as bad luck. Some people say it means you're going to die as well. So do that well. The other thing that has to take place is the candle must stay lit. Some people say 2 candles. The candle must stay lit throughout the whole process, all the days that you're sitting there watching. There will be feasting. The family are expected to provide drink, bread, cheese, drink. There will be games, because what more would you want when you've got a dead person in the room to play some games? It was quite common to play cards on top of the coffin. It's there, you might as well. One account says that they all got a little bit tipsy and decided to play hide and seek. So, where's the best place to hide? Yes, you guessed it. They took the corpse out, put it somewhere for a bit, got inside the coffin and just waited. Later, the boy was found dead on the coffin. The corpse was never found again, and thought would be taken by fairies. Okay, so the day of the funeral, there were many rules as well. Always rules, and if you don't follow the rules are wrong. Okay, all about tradition. So everyone would have a toast, obviously. You need a toast before you do all this. Then, everyone had to touch the corpse, as you do, for 2 reasons. One, to show that they don't bear any ill will towards the person that's died. Secondly, what does it supposed to believe if they're there to be touched? And they're the test. So, after all that's done, I'd need another toast after that. After all that's done, what happens is the 8 female relatives that have been chosen will do the first lift. They lift the coffin and they take that out to the men. But they must come out to turn all the chairs that the coffin was resting on upside down, so that ghosts don't sit on them. So when the coffin gets outside, a group of 8 men are chosen from the community, and then they start taking the coffin away. And everyone else will follow. But the tradition was that the 8 men had to switch. There were different groups of 8 men. And when they switched, they had a little rest and a little drink. And one interesting tradition was sometimes they pick the stone and throw it at the side of the road and form like a little cannon, which I think is nice. But there are some interesting accounts of these funeral processions. One said that there were a lot of fights. They used to fight quite a lot, especially if there was like a rival funeral procession going to the same church. You have to have a fist fight. There was one account that says everyone got a little bit too tipsy and just lost the coffin. It happens. It happens. Okay, so when you do finally reach the churchyard, the women aren't allowed in. They have to go home and make the funeral feast, called the dredging. And the children would go as well. So the men would stay behind to perform the actual burial. And the coffin would be lowered down by relatives using cords into the ground. And then they're all going to have another party, because you need one after that. And that is still done today, the lowering of the coffin of cords, but only in Scotland. So that's quite interesting. It shows a lot of continuity. Thankfully, they don't do the rest, so we're okay. So, being the ghost again, ghost of Christmas future. So, stuff's not the same anymore. We have traditions, we still have traditions, but they are changing, and there's a huge emphasis on the individual now, even more so. So it starts off in prehistory, it's all about community, it's all about ancestors. You move to the 19th century, it's all about tradition, helping the soul, but still binding the community together with these rules and these things that must be done and these obligations. Moving forward, what's been happening recently and the way it's looking to be going, not so much. Very individual. So we're going to play a little game. I'd like to shout out the link. It's a bit like QI. What's the link? What do all these things have in common? Anybody? They have all appeared in Scottish funerals recently. Okay, so we know that, I'm not going to go into detail because it's a bit too deep, but just go through some of our customs that we still have in Scotland. Funeral flowers, people still have them. You can now get them in the shape of a pint of Guinness. A hearse, people still have hearses. But now you too can choose a milk float or a Cadillac instead. Coffins, yes, we still use them. But you can now be buried in a coffin shaped like a TARDIS. For those of you who love Doctor Who. Even better, do we have any keen cyclists in the room? No, too many hills, that's what I thought. Keen cyclists can be buried in a micro. And if that's not your bag, you too can be buried in a clown costume. So, what we're seeing is tradition still happens, but it's very much open to interpretation now. And it's very much about the individual. And we see a move from all these strict rules and how the spirit is treated and how the ancestors are worshipped. Now it seems like it's becoming a celebration of life. What did the person love? Did they want to be a clown? In death, they can. So, funerals and death rituals all across the world are highly different. Some seem strange, some you really wouldn't want to get involved in. But really, every single one of those rituals that we've gone through, from the beginning of history in Scotland, to right across the world, to the Philippines, to Iran, to India, every single one of those rituals means exactly the same thing. It binds the community together. It helps us get through life. They help us accept death and normalise it and tell us we can cope. So, I regretted choosing death as a topic for a talk, I will admit. But I've been mulling over it and I've been thinking about all of these things and the positive ways that funerals and celebrations and rituals are used. And the move towards celebrating life. Can we now see death a little bit more positively and not dread a funeral so much? I don't know, that's a difficult thing. But it's a hope that happens. And it does show how united every human is across time, across space, by the same things that they care about, the same things that they fear. What can you do? Well, what you can do is listen to this quote that I'd like to finish with from Hunter S. Thompson. That's not right. Hunter S. Thompson, who wrote a paper in Las Vegas, because he knows a lot about life and death. So I'll leave you with this one quote. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving in a well-preserved body, but rather it should be a skid-in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what pride. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Wendy now, who's going to take over with some stories and follow on.
Just before Wendy begins, can we do a little clear of the stairs?